Welcome to day one of the Figma in 3 days course. Today we will be learning how to design a landing page UI for a home control app. We will cover the basics of Figma interface, design tools, and explore how to create visually appealing and functional landing pages. Let's get started. So once you get to this page, which is www.figma.com, so let's click on get started to create our account. So I'm just going to input my email here. Then I'm going to set up a password here as well. So I'm going to click on create account. So I'm going to input my name. I think I should use design while me. I'm just going to use this. What kind of work do you do? I'm going to select design. Then I'm going to select for personal use as the primary use of Figma. So you can leave this or uncheck this if you want to receive Figma mailing list, but I'm going to leave this checked. So I'm going to click on create account. So I'm going to verify my email. I'm going to verify my email by opening the Gmail website. So once the verification is done, we are going to get to this page. So I'm just going to click on do this later. Then let's start for free. So I'm going to be clicking on I'll get started on my own. So once you are on this page, this is the draft page. You can just close this. No thanks. So this is where your files, your design files is going to be saved. So you can access any design you previously did here. So this is the search bar where you can search for any files, theme or people. So this is the explore. If you click on it, you are going to get inspirations, like you can get inspirations from other designers. So I'm just going to go back to my draft. So this is the notification tab. You can just click on it, and this is your account settings. So I'm going to change the theme to dark. Yeah, that's right. So let's start by creating our design. So I'm just going to click on new design file. So this is the design interface. So these are your toolbar. So this is the home, like when you want to go back to your files, which is the draft. So this is the pick tool, so you can use to move any assets. And this is the frame tool. Yeah, this is the frame tool. You can just select any frame you want to use here, and there's also selection and slice under it. So then this is the rectangle tool. If you want to create any rectangle, this is the pen tool, this is the text tool, and this is the resources tool. So the resources tool is used for if you have components saved in your file, so you can just use the resources tool to access it. And you can access some plugins here too. So plugins make your design workflow faster. So you can use any plugin you want here. So this is the pan tool. So if you have a lot design here, so you can just pan across them. And this is the comment tool. So if you want to comment anywhere around your design, so I'm just going to click on the pick tool. So this is the file you are working on, so is under draft, and then the name you are working on. So you can just click on this to change the name. Let's change it to the app we are designing. So I'm just going to write control, no, let's write home control app. So I'm just going to click on enter. So you can click this little arrow icon if you want to rename it, duplicate it, or you can move the project to another to teams or send it to another people. So this is your account. Yeah, this is you. So you can share this design, any design you did there, you can share it. And if you want to view your design if you want to view it in live mode, so you can just click on this and view. And this is the zoom tool. So this is your layer panel. Like any layer you add there, either is a rectangle or text or frames, they are going to be listed here. So you can also, let me do some, okay, let's say this is a frame. So you see this is the frame layer. So you can also use layer to work on things like how you want the settings to be. Let me just click on rectangle and drag another here. Let's change this color quick. Okay, let's just try something like this. Okay, so now you see they are already layered under the frame. They are layered under the frame, under the frame. So you can just bring this down like this, and you see this went down. You can just, if you want the brown one up, so you can just bring it up and you see it up. So I'm just going to delete all this. So this is the option panel where you are going to have the option for any tool you are using. So if you click on the rectangle, let me draw a rectangle here. So you see the option has changed. So let me just delete that, and this is the prototype. So if you want to prototype your design, so you can use this, and inspect if you want to export it to code. So I'm just going to click on design. So let's start by adding our frame. So we are designing this control app landing page. So I'm just going to click on this frame, and then I'm not going to select phone because we want to design a landing page. So we are going to be using desktop. So let's click on this desktop and click on this desktop. So now we have this desktop here. I'm just going to zoom out, which is Alt Z. So you can just zoom out. Okay, now you are seeing it. So this frame, let me show you what it is. This frame is actually this frame like this from here to here. This is not the website you are going to be designing. I'm just using this as an example. So this is the frame, but once you scroll up, you see there are other designs here. There are other designs here. So we are going to just drag this down like this so that we can design the whole page. So I'm just going to leave this. So you can rename your frame by double clicking on its name. So you can just rename it to landing. Let's try landing page UI. So I'm just going to leave that as that. So now when you are designing a desktop, or let's say when you are designing a web UI, so websites are made up of sections. So this is section here. So this is called the menu section, and this is called the header section. This is another section here. So this another section here, and this another section here. Yeah, you can see this right because we use another background for this section. So this is section here. So from here to here is another section. So this another section, and this is the footer section. So that's how we are going to be designing. But let's start by adding grids to this layout. So I'm just going to click on this frame, and let's scroll down here to layout grid. So I'm going to click on this plus icon to add grid to it. So a website grid, let's start with column. So a website column, a website grid, we actually use 12 count for a website grid, then you are going to leave it as stretch, then change the margin to 150. So we are going to have a margin here. So from here to here is going to be 150, and from here to here is going to be 150. So the gutter as well, let's change it to something like 16, because whenever you are adding a grid to your design system, make sure you follow the 8-point rule. The 8-point rule simply means that anything you are working on is either spacing text, spacing text, or anything you are working on, just make sure it is multiples of 8. So let's add another grid here, which is going to be the row grid. This is the column grid, so let's add the row grid. I'm just going to click on plus again, then let's change this to rows, and then I'm going to change this to auto. So I want auto here, but the type I want it at the top. Then I'm going to change this height because we are using the 8-point rule, so I'm going to be changing this to 8, and then the gutter as well to 8. So the gutter is actually the space between, so the space between is going to be 8, and the rows as well, so this red dash is going to be 8 points. So just make sure you use 8-point rule for your grid so that you can have a nice design just like this. But in this case, we are designing a home control app. I'm just using that website as an example. So let's start with the wireframe. After the grids, let's work on the wireframing. So I'm just going to zoom in using Z only. So then I'm going to be using my space to pan across the design. So you can just use your space to pan across the design. So let's start with the wireframe. So I'm going to start with the logo. So let's select a text here, and then let's suggest a name for the logo. So I'm just going to write home flow. So let's use this home flow. Then I'm going to be changing the size. Let's change the size to something like 32. Let's try 32. Okay, I think it's actually great. So now we are going to be using the grid now. So I'm just going to bring this here. So make sure it's aligned with the grid. Then you can just zoom in and bring it somewhere here, and it's aligned to the grid as well. So this is going to be, so we are designing the menu bar right now. So the logo, and let's add a button here as this. So let's add a button here. So I'm just going to use Alt to duplicate this. So once you press Alt, the icon is like your mouse is going to change to 2. So you can just drag it like this by holding Alt. So you can just leave the 2. Then I'm going to change this to get started. So once you are done typing, you should just click outside of your design. So it's going to be back here. So I'm going to be changing the font size to 24. Let's use 24 for that. I think it's actually great. So I'm going to be bringing it here. Now I want this as a button. So we are going to be using auto layout to add, to create a button to it. You can use the rectangle too. You can just add a rectangle at the end of it, and you can just layout it, but this is actually a long step, so you shouldn't be using that. So there's a quicker and cleaner way you can do it. So by just making this an auto layout. So once you select it, click on Shift A. So it's going to add to auto layout. So once you see it now, you have frame 1 here, and you have the text under it. So I'm going to select the auto layout, and let's give it some fill. So I'm going to scroll down here and click on fill, and then let's just give it something like this. Let's give it something like this. So I want a radius, let me zoom in. So I want a radius corner around this. So I'm going to select make sure you are selecting the auto layout frame. So I'm going to change this to 20. Yeah, let's change this to 20, and the spacing here and here, let's use the 8-point rule. So this vertical spacing, so this it here, we can just change it to 8 points, and then this, using the 8-point rule, let's use something like 32. So you see, this is nice. I'm going to double click and change the font. Let's change it to something like semi bold. That's actually nice, so that the logo, the icon can be bold. The icon are the main are part of the main things that are important when you are designing or when you are creating a website. So let's leave it like this. So I'm going to make sure it's aligned with this. So let's just bring it something like here, or we can just use the auto layout. So select this and select this, make sure it's in the grid. So make sure it's in the grid. So select the two and press Shift A to auto layout them. So you can just use this, you see, to arrange them. Is actually great. So I want to arrange this as well. So let's put it at align center. So now we are done with the menu. We are done with the menu section. Now let's go to the header section. This is actually the header section. From here, you see this line here, from here to somewhere here. I think that's the section. So this another section, I've already told you that. So I'm going to add a rectangle here. So but I'm starting the rectangle from somewhere here. So let's bring it, yeah, let's make sure it's aligned to the design. Then let's shift it down a little and let's zoom in to make sure we are following the grid. So make sure you follow the grid whenever you are designing. So I think at this button too, I'm going to drag it down. Okay, yeah, that's nice. So the reason why we actually break the grid rules here is because we can add some colors here. We can add some colors here, but it's actually not relevant to the design. Like the logo is relevant, like we need it to show, but this may not show. The reason why we are using this size for the grid is that the average PC size is actually this size. So that's why we are using this grid for this design. So I'm going to leave this as this. So you can exit the grid by pressing Shift G, and if you want the grid back, you can press Shift G again, so it's going to be visible. So I'm just going to press Shift G for now to unvisible it. I think this is nice. So let's add some image here. So I'm just going to be using the rectangle as well, and let's drag some here. I'm just going to change the color a bit. Let's try this. Yeah, let's try that. So I'm going to be giving it some radius corner as well. So select it and let's click on here. I'm going to be giving this 30. Then let's zoom up and make sure it's in the middle. Yeah, I think that's the middle. So I'm going to bring up the grid now. So Shift G, you see this went off the grid. So you can, if you want this image in the grid, so you can just shift it here. That means the image is actually relevant to your design, but I'm just going to move it back. Then I'm just going to duplicate this square, this rectangle I mean. So let's just hold Alt, then drag it to where we want it now. So I'm just going to change this color. Let's try and change it to something this. I'm going to remove the grid now. Okay, I think this is nice. Let's put it somewhere there. So whenever you are designing a website, so after after you have followed the section rule, there are also ways that we actually divide column inside sections. So this is a column here, they are layered vertical, so this is a column. But when they are layered horizontal, like they are beside themselves, so this is going to be another column, and then this is going to be another column. So for our design now, this is going to be in a column, and then the text that we are adding here is going to be a column. So it's a good practice you divide the grid. We are using 12 grids here, so it's a good practice you divide the grid into 6. So let's count this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is not a good design, so you can just shift it out like this. So you see, make sure you are following the grid so that your design can look professional. So this is actually nice, so that's why you should be using grid. So once you are working on a column design, like a column horizontally design, make sure that this is a different column and this is a different column. So let me just copy this again using Alt, then just reduce this. I'm actually designing this image and reduce it. Okay, I think this is nice. So this is nice. I'm just going to hide the grid now. So press Shift G to hide the grid. So this image are not in the grid because they are not relevant. The main image of this design, I'm going to be putting it here. I think I'm just going to be adding maybe a color or something. Then I'm just going to be adding another image here which is not actually relevant. So let's add the text here. I'm just going to be using the text tool, and let's add some text here. I'm just going to write control your home with comfort. Yeah, let's try that. I think it's actually great. So we can use the grid here, and I'm just going to be using, we are using the 8-point rule. So let's try something like 80. That's 8 times 10. So let's shift this like this and bring this to this side. So make sure you follow the grid, and then once you press this and this is above this like this, so you can just double click. Oh, that actually went wrong. So you can just click and hold, then drag it like this so that your design can come down like this. So anyhow you like, you can just shift it more. If you like it like this, you can leave it, but I actually like it like this, following the slant rule. So let's just leave that as that. So now I think we should add a button here. So I'm just going to be copying this button. Let me hide the grid. So I'm just going to double click on this, then Alt to duplicate it, Alt and drag. So let's just drag it here. Then the frame is actually under this. We created this before we created this, so it's going to be under. So I'm just going to be bringing, let me see, okay, that's the frame 1, this frame 1. So I'm just going to be bringing it up above this text right here. So we can change the font, we can change the text by double clicking and double clicking again. So I'm just going to change it to start now. So this is nice. So I think we are done with the header section. You see, this actually has a button here as well, and the text and the image. So if we use the grid to this, okay, I think this image is relevant, so that's why they are in the grid. So let's go back to our design. So see, this is actually nice, it's looking professionally already. So I'm just going to, let's use pan tool to pan it across. So let's go to the next section. So the next section is going to be somewhere here. So you can just add a rectangle and redraw your box, or you can just copy this down. So using Alt, so Alt is for duplicate, so let's just put it somewhere here, and then let's bring it up. Ctrl Z, let me zoom in and bring this up, so make sure they match, like there's no space between. So you can reduce this size if you want. I'm going to reduce it. Then I'm going to change its color so that we can know that this is another section and this is another section. Let's change the color fill to something like this. Okay, I think something like this is actually nice. So I'm just going to copy this text using Alt, then drag and bring it here. I'm going to be putting this at the center. So I'm going to reduce, let's reduce this size to 24, and then I think, let me see, this is actually semi bold. Let's use medium. Yeah, let's use medium for the main text. So we are going to be using 24. We are going to be using 24 their size, their pixel at 24 pixels, and let's use medium for the main text. So I'm just going to double click, like once my icon changed to this icon, so I'm just going to double click here, so it's going to align to this text. So let's change some text here. So double click and write easily turn light on. So let's click out of this. So I'm just going to bring this here and let's duplicate this again, and let's change the text by double clicking to adjust the thermostat. Yeah, then you are going to click out of that text, and then let's duplicate this again using Alt and drag. So just bring it here, and then double clicking again, let's change this to easy to use interface. Yeah, so let's click out of that text. So I'm just going to select this three and Alt and drag them down as well. So double click on this, control your security system. Yeah, let's edit this, so you can just select them all and then create personalized settings, and then let's select all these, and then let's write and more to this. So I'm going to be adding a divider among them, so let's just use a rectangle. Let's zoom in, and let's add the divider. I want something like this. Okay, I think this is nice. So I'm going to be adding, yeah, let's add radius corners. Let's add radius to the corners. So let's use 13. So okay, I think this radius is nice, but I'm just going to be changing the color to something. Okay, this deep one is actually nice, so I'm just going to click on this divider, then let's Alt drag it to this side. So I'm going to select the two and Alt drag them here as well. So I'm going to auto layout them now. So let's select this, shift this, shift this, shift this, and shift this. So I'm just going to be using Shift A to auto layout them. So the spacing here is equals to the spacing here is equals to the spacing here is equals to the spacing here, and you can just put them in the center. Let's align them to the center. So let's do the same thing for these guys here. Let me zoom in. Shift click, shift click, shift click, and shift click. So Shift A for auto layout, and let's put them in the middle. So now let's make sure the spacing here is equals to the spacing here as well. I think I like how this actually space out, so I'm going to check them. Is actually 99. Let's make it a multiples of 8. Let's try something like 88. So I'm just going to change this as well to multiples of 8, 88. So I'm going to select both, then auto layout the auto layout. I don't think you understand, but you actually see how I did it. So select the two and shift A to auto layout them. So I'm just going to place them. Let's place them in the middle. Yeah. So let's the space here. Let's try something like 24 or 32. Yeah, let's use 32. 32 is actually great. So I'm going to space out, then I'm going to make sure they are in the middle. So once you click on them, you can just click on this align. So align to horizontal centers. Let's try and align it to vertical center. Or you can just select this auto layout and then select the rectangle you want to align them to. So let's just click on these two and they are aligned in the center. So we are done with this section here. Let's go to the next section. I'm just going to copy this as usual. So alt drag. Yeah, make sure it's aligned. So let's drag this up and okay, that didn't align well, so I'm just going to bring it to the center. So it's great now. So here let's add some more image, to convince the audience. Let's add some more image. So I'm just going to copy this image, using alt. So alt drag it to wherever you want it. So it's actually here now. So I'm just going to be putting it somewhere here and then copy this as well. Alt drag it. Let's drag it somewhere here and let's change the color so that we can see it clearly. Okay, that's right. So now let me zoom up. So I want this rectangle to stop here. So when we drag it here, when we drag it to that section, you see that there is curve here, which I don't want. It actually didn't look good. So let's just remove the curve radius from this side and this side only. So if I click on it and go to this place, it's just one option here. So if I set this to 0, this is also going to get affected. So let's just click on Ctrl Z and then let's click on this little icon here. So it's just going to bring every radius corner. So I'm just going to change this to 0 and this to 0. So you see, we actually get the design we want here. So I'm just going to place this somewhere here. Then let's add a text. So I'm just going to copy this text using Alt, but I'm actually going to be reducing the size, because if you see here, the main text in the website is actually going to be the biggest. Like the main text in the header section is actually going to be the biggest text in this design. So if we scroll down, this is actually big, but it's not like this. So scroll down, you see that there is actually no text there that is bigger than this. So let's reduce this. I'm just going to let's try something like 64. 64 is actually great, but let's try something like 48. Yeah, I think 48 is dope. So let's try this and let's change the text to compatible. You are going to double click to access it. Yeah, so compatible with wide range of smart devices. Yeah, let's leave it like this and we can just change this a little bit. Now we are actually designing this to, like, let's use the grid to perfect our layering. Yes, we can our layering. So I'm going to bring up the grid using Ctrl G for the grid and let's count this 1 2 3 4 5 6. So this is actually perfect, but we just need to shift this a little here. Yeah, so you can also shift this in a little bit, but since this image is relevant and you see it's actually in the middle, so we don't have to shift it here because it's still in the grid, but this is not actually really relevant. We are just putting it there for design sake. So let's leave that to exist the grid, and then let's copy this button using alt and then drag to where you want it, yeah, to somewhere there, and then let's exist the grid and then zoom in, and let's change the text. Let's change the text into it. So double click to access the text and then double click again to edit the text. So I'm just going to change it to connect and learn more. Yeah, so I think this section is done. Let's move to the next section. Now the next section is going to be about, this is a landing page, so we should actually put a download link, the download link for the app. So we are going to be putting a download from Google Play Store and then download from Apple Store. So yeah, let's copy this. Yeah, let's copy this, then alt drag it down. So you can copy any actually, but I just want to keep the color, that's why I'm copying this. Then let's go and make sure they really aligned. Okay, that's aligned. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit because I want it a little bit bigger. So let's just copy this text here and drag it to somewhere here. Make sure it's in the middle. So let's change the text to get the app. Then I'm going to double click on this. Once my mouse changed to this arrow, to this arrow, so I'm just going to double click this and it's going to perfect it. So I'm going to put it in the middle, align. Then let's copy a text here. So let's double click till we reach to the text, and let's alt drag it to where we want it. Okay, we want it somewhere here. I can just use my arrow key on my keyboard to bring it down a little bit. So let's write our app is compatible. Our app is compatible with a wide range of devices. So let's put this in the middle as well. So you can use the grid layout. Let's try it. Okay, that is actually right, and then this is not actually right, so we need to bring it up a little bit. So I'm going to leave that like that. So exist the grid. Now we want to put an icon here. You can just use the pen tool to design an icon you want, or go and download it in another website and add it here, but that is going to be a long way. So that's where you are going to be using some plugins so that they can assist our design. So the plugin we are going to be using for, I'm going to click on plugin. The plugin we are going to be using for our icons is actually called Material Design Icons. So let's type that and it's going to load. Okay, this is it right here. So used by 800 plus people. So let's click on it. So I'm going to be saving this, so click on this and save it because I'm going to be using it next time. So I just want to save it to my plugin. I don't want to be accessing the resources then plugins every time. So let's click on run. So this is our plugin. Is actually looking nice. So I'm going to change the color to white. I want white. Then you can change it from PNG to JPEG or anything you want, but I'm just going to leave it at PNG. Then you can select the frame and make sure you are in the frame. So let's search for the icon we want. So I'm just going to search for Apple. Let's search for Apple. Then this is it right here by icon 8. So I'm just going to click on it. So it's going to load it and import it into our project. So after we search icon and import it, let's try Google. Let's try Google. Okay, we can use this Google right here, but let's see if we can get the Play Store icon. So okay, this is it right here. So let's just click on it. Make sure you are not selecting this icon here because it's just going to replace if you select it. So make sure you are not selecting it, and let's click on this Google Play. Okay, this is it right here. So I'm just going to close this plugin for now. So anytime you want to access it next time, you can just right click anywhere in your project and then come to plugins and then save plugins, and this is it right here. So any plugins you save are going to be listed here, and the recent plugins you use are going to be listed here. So let's back to the design. So I'm just going to shift this up here and shift this up here. Let's just give them some space, and then let's copy this text. So using alt then drag, let's copy it here, and then let's change this to available on, okay, available on the, yeah. Then let's copy this out again, and then let's write app store. Let's write app store. So I'm going to be changing this size here to something big. Let's try something like 36. Okay, 36 is actually great, and let's change this medium to semi bold, or let's try bold. Let's just leave it as semi bold. So I'm just going to select these two, and then let's auto layout them. So you are going to select the two with shift, then shift A to auto layout them, and let's make sure they are aligned in the center, and then we can just use multiples of 8 here. Let's try 4. 4 is 8 divided by 2. So let's try 4 because the spacing I want is actually small. So this is actually nice. So I'm just going to copy the auto layout by duplicating it. So let's use alt and drag it to this other side here. So available on the, let's change this to Google Play, and we can change this as well to download. So just to use different words there. So now let's change, we are going to be auto layouting this and this, and we are going to add a color, a fill to the auto layout so that it can serve as a button. So but before we do that, I'm going to be changing this color to white. So double click it, and then let's go to fill and let's change it to white. Double click this as well, let's change it to white, and then let's select the logo and the auto layout of this, and then shift A for that. Oh, they are outside the frame, so that's why there's a name here, naming frame 9. So you can just Ctrl Z, yeah, and make sure you bring these two, let's bring it into our frame, like into our landing page UI frame. So they are inside the frame now. So once you click on these two and then auto layout them using shift A, so you see that there is no frame name here, and it is actually inside our frame. So let's add a fill to the auto layout. So let's click on this plus icon. If you don't see any fill here, click on this plus icon and let's add black. Now this is not actually right, let's add, this is not actually looking great, so let's add some spacing. I'm going to be using that 8 points grid, so let's add 8, and then for the horizontal let's add something like 16. Okay, that's actually nice. So I'm going to be using a curve. Let's try 20, let's try 30. So you can just try any number out. So you see this is actually great, the design is great. So let's do the same thing for this side as well. So double click and then change the fill to white, then double click on this and change the fill to white, then select the two and then auto layout, and let's use the same spacing we used there. I'm not sure what's this space. Okay, 13. Let's change this to multiples of 8, 6. No, I'm going to use 8. Yeah, 8 is actually good. So their spacing here, you are going to be using 8, and then their horizontal spacing we are using 16, and then the vertical spacing we are using 8. And let's make sure they are in the center. make sure they are in the center. So we are going to add a fill now to this, which is going to be black, and then a radius corner. We are going to be using the same radius corner as this so that the design can be consistent, 30. So let's add these two to auto layout. It will help us align it to the middle, having the same align number. Like, let's just align it. So I'm just going to click on shift A to align that, and let's reduce the space in between. Let's try something like 180, or let's try something like 160. 160 is actually too big. Let's try something like 80. Okay, 80 is actually great. So click on this and then let's align it to the middle. So you see what I'm saying? 80 is actually too big, so let's try something like, how about 40? Yeah, 40 is actually great. So align it to the middle. So now we are done with this. So you can just select everything and realign them so that they can be in the center, or let's just add some spacing here, and make sure you are using the grid to add some spacing here so that your design can come out well. So this is nice. I think we should just add the footer here. This is actually a great work. So if you get to this point, I want to appreciate you that you are going to be a great designer. So let's add the footer here. I think I'm done now. So let's just copy this using Alt and drag it to the side, and then let's zoom this and then drag it here. Okay, so this is the footer. So it's actually going to be something like this. Yeah, it's actually going to be something like this. I'm going to copy this and drag it here. So let's change it to all right reserved, then full stop 2023. Yeah, let's try that. So I'm just going to zoom in and make sure you use the grid. You see, it's actually out of the grid. So let's just put it somewhere here. Oh, this grid is actually bad. Okay, yeah, we fix that now. So I'm just going to be putting an icon, like social media's icons here. Let's just put it there for design's sake. And so we are going to be using the same plugin we used for this. So I'm just going to right click anywhere, then plugins and recent plugins. Let's just launch that. And so I'm just going to search for social. Let's search for social and let's see what it's brought. Okay, Facebook. Let's add Facebook. I think I'm going to, let's use this icon. I like this. Okay, it's actually, but I want to reduce the size, so I'm just going to delete that, and let's try 24 by 24 size. So Facebook is actually in, yeah, that's right. So let's try Twitter, that's actually in as well, and let's put one more, Instagram. Okay, it's actually there. So I think let's just use those three now. So let's copy this, and then copy this, and let's bring them into our frame. So bring them into the frame and let's auto layout them. So shift A for auto layout. Now you can just, let's increase the space between to something like 32. Okay, that's actually nice. So I'm just going to bring them there and Ctrl Z to that. I'm using panning now. Space, you can hold on space for panning across your design. So let's bring the grid and make sure it's actually, somewhere here. So let's select these two and then auto layout them so that they can be in the center. So I'm just going to change this color to white, the fill to white, and then let's remove the grid. So I think we are done with the grid. So now there is some spacing here, so let's remove the spacing. So I'm just going to click on the frame and then let's come back here and drag this. So it's going to snap to that place. You will see an X icon here. So that means it's snapped to that design. So let's leave it as that. And then I'm just going to zoom in. So now we are done with the wireframing. So if you have anything you want to correct before we start adding colors and image, you can add them right now, but I'm not going to. Let me check this. We can still edit here, but let's leave it as that. So I'm not going to be adding anything. So let's add colors now. Let's add colors. So let's zoom in and then let's start with the logo. So I don't like how this logo is just looking like a normal text. So let's add. We are going to double click, and then I'm going to select this home only. Then let's change this to bold, and then let's change the color. Let's try some nice green tea. Okay, I think this green is actually great, and let's use another color for this flow. Let's try something like orange. Yeah, green and orange are actually okay color that you can use. So I think these colors are great. So I'm going to be using these two colors for our design. So green is our main color, but the green is our primary color, and you can also call it main. It's the same thing. And the flow, it's going to be the secondary color. So you can add as many colors as you want in your design, but professionally, don't let your colors be more than 4. Yeah, that's professionally. But you can add as many colors as you want, and some professionals actually use more than 4 colors, but they know how to design it and to make it look good. So since green is our primary color, we are going to be using green for our buttons. So let's start that now. So double click on the auto layout. We used an auto layout for this button. So double click, and then let's change the fill. So the color is here, so make sure your color is consistent. Don't go and be selecting another green, it's bad. So just use the green that is in the document, like that is in the document. So now I'm going to be using white for this text. Black on green is not actually great as a designer, so use white. You see, it's actually great now. So for this as well, let's use green, and then double click, and let's use white. So I think there's another button here. So the fill, then double click, and then white. So I think the buttons are actually this. I'm going to be leaving them as black. So we can actually bring this guy up a little. So make sure you don't exist the grid. So make sure you're on the grid. Let's just bring it up. Like for best practices, you can actually bring them a little bit up. So now the other green colors, I think I'm going to be leaving this background as this. Let me light it a little bit. Yeah, let's light it a little bit more. Okay, that's actually great. So I'm just going to be changing this to green, and let's leave this as this, and we are going to be adding image here, image here, image here, image here. So there's nothing to change again. I'm going to change this background to, let's change it to white. Then I'm going to be changing this background as well to white. So for this, I'm going to be copying this. So let's just go to fill and copy this. Now if you look at the design, we have been using green. Let's try and implement orange. I think I'm going to be using orange for the footer because we have been using green, and orange is the secondary color. So let's try and implement that. So for the fill here, let's change this to orange. So this is actually great. The design is actually fine. So I'm going to be implementing orange in the header as well. So let's try and implement orange here. Let's just design some square here, and let's give it orange. Now we want this square under the comfort text. So there are things you can do. You can just right click it and send it to back, but if you send it to back, it's going to go to the back of this as well. So it's going to go to the back of the first layer you have here. So we don't want that. I'm just going to be dragging it manually. So we are going to look for this font, control your home. For this text, I mean control your home. So let's just drag this and let's drag it down. It's not moving, so let's just place it here and then drag this. Okay, this actually it's control your home now is actually under. So this design is actually great. So now we are done adding the colors. Let's add images. So we are going to be using, I'm going to, yeah, you can just change it here and change it to, or let's use zoom to fill. So the plugin I'm going to be using for the image is actually called Pixels. So let's go back to the resources and let's search for Pixels. And then this is actually it here. I'm just going to click it, then let's save this because I'll be using it in our next tutorial. So let's just click on one. And then this is actually our plugin here. So before I actually do anything in the plugin, let me just shift our design to this side so that you can see it well. So I'm just going to select the rectangle I want the image. So select the rectangle and let's search for home or interior. Let's search for home. I think home is actually more warming than interior. So this is actually nice. So I think we should actually use this. I like this. So let's click it. So it's going to load, then it's going to import it. I'm not liking it. It's not actually fine. Oh, let's use this. So this is actually nice. So let's change this as well. Yeah, let's look for more fine home stuff. Yeah, you can use this here, and then let's select this. Let's add an image here too. So I'm just going to, let's scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. You should look for more homing stuff. Okay, this is actually nice. So I'm just going to click on this, then it's going to load it. Let's load an image on this rectangle as well. So let's scroll down. Oh, this is actually great. I think I should use this for this. So I'm just going to use that for this. So you can just check through your image. And let's change this to something like this. So this is our design and it's actually great and marvelous. Oh, before I forget, let me teach you how to export out this beautiful design you just did so that you can share it on your social pages and you can as well as tag me. So just click on the frame we worked on. So this landing page UI, then let's scroll down to export, then click on this add button to export it out. So I usually advise that you should export any design at 2x, so times 2 the file size of this. So make sure you always render at times 2 the file size of this. So I'm just going to change this to JPEG and let's click on export landing page UI. So it's going to download our JPEG image. So you can just check out your download folder and you are going to see it there. Let me open this and let's see what we designed. So this is actually it. It's actually looked great. So you can share it on your social page and tag me. Congratulations on completing day 1 of this Figma in 3 days course. You can keep practicing what we designed and experiment new ideas. I will see you tomorrow for day 2.